Everyone, welcome back. So, as I said, I am going to do a Sony A7 III review. It's going to be a pretty quick review. I'm just going to go over what's changed and what's improved, and I'm not going to run down all the specs. A lot of the stuff is similar to the A7 III and even the A7 II beforehand, and the A7 II in terms of sort of the basic shape of the body, the lenses, and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to tell you is that I've been using the A7 III now for about a month. Before that, I've been using the A7 II, so I'm familiar with Sony bodies. I've used the A7 II before, and before that an A7R, so I've used every generation of Sony body. The A7 III and the third generation of Sony bodies has got to the performance level where I feel it's good enough for everyday use, for professional use. Usability and ergonomics now are pretty damn good on this camera. It feels comfortable in the hand, it feels solid, well built, all the things that you'd expect from a $2,000 or £2,000 camera. So you're not going to be disappointed in terms of the ergonomics. So when we're talking about ergonomics, basically what they've done to change it, they've deepened the grip slightly, so it's slightly bigger, slightly deeper, so it sticks out from the body a little bit more. It actually feels shaped a little bit better. So it's very comfortable to hold in extended use. I've been using this as my main body for, as I say, a month, and I found no problems in handling at all. One of the most important things that they've done is they've changed the record button position, so now it is on the back of the camera just to the right of the viewfinder. Much better. If you know, on my previous video about the second generation of Sony A7 bodies, they used to have the record button out here, which was a little bit awkward to press. So that's great in terms of ergonomics. We now have dual card slots. Slot 1 being UHS-2 compatible, slot 2 being just UHS-1, so you've got one fast slot and you've got one standard slot. It doesn't make a difference really, the buffer clears pretty quickly. I've not had any problems at all with this using fast cards, either 95 megabytes a second SanDisk cards or also 280 megabytes a second SanDisk cards. No problems there. One of the best new features and one of the things I appreciate most is the new battery. I'm getting about 700 or 800 shots from a full charge. Video wise, about 2.5 hours of video in 4K. So it's much improved over the second generation of bodies where it used the old very small battery. So that is great too. We've got the flip out LCD screen, which is a tilt screen. I actually really like this both for video and for stills, but the fully articulated screen like on the GH5 does give you a few more usage scenarios. For instance, if you want to shoot portrait, a fully articulated screen you can still use in the up and down position, whereas this one it doesn't give you any benefit at all if you're shooting portrait. But yep, like the tilt screen, nothing wrong with it at all. It's bright. One improvement from the second generation is that it is bright enough to see in daylight, and I'm here in the Philippines. Obviously it's sunny a lot of the time. I had no problems at all seeing the LCD screen and the viewfinder in bright conditions, so that's good. We also have a slow and quick mode now on the PASM dial, and that allows you to see slow motion or fast motion video conformed in camera, so you can see the effect in camera. You don't have to wait until you put it onto your software at a later date and then slow it down on the timeline. It does use quite a low bitrate codec though. I'm pretty sure it drops down to about 12 megabytes per second codec when you're shooting at 120 frames a second. So I use it sparingly. If you're just doing a bit of casual video, then it's okay. But I would still shoot using the standard 120 frames per second in high definition mode if you want top quality slow motion video. That's it really in terms of the handling. The viewfinder is the same as the A7R II. It's not as good as the A7R III, but it's perfectly usable, perfectly bright. It does everything you need it to do. I'd have no complaints about the viewfinder whatsoever. Buttons on the A7 III have a slightly different feel to the A7R II or second generation bodies. They're slightly more spongy to press, but they give good tactile feedback. You know what you're doing. It's very good in terms of feedback when you're pressing the buttons. The shutter button also has a slightly spongier feel to it. But Just small points really, very, very similar to previous bodies, just a little bit of a nicer package, slightly ergonomically better. Okay, so in terms of autofocus, there's been quite a decent improvement on the autofocus side of things. It's taken the module from the Sony A9, so the $4,000, you know, top of the line camera, and it's put that into the A7 III. Now, I'm not going to go through all the numbers, you can find that quite easily online, but suffice to say, the autofocus points spread across virtually all of the frame now, so you can pick autofocus points right in the corners almost. It's very quick to focus in single AF. Tracking AF is superb. I would say tracking autofocus for tracking portraits, for instance, moving portraits, is among the best that you can get now. And it's very, very accurate. In fact, I can't think of a time with the A7 III where I got something out of focus. So I'm really impressed with it. Face detection and IAF is the best there is, to be honest. In tracking autofocus mode, it will pick up eyes, even if it's like at a diagonal angle like this, which some systems struggle with. It's certainly better than the Panasonic on the GH5. I think it's better than their eye detection and face detection AF. In single autofocus mode, it's about the same or slightly better than Olympus's. So it is really, really good. No complaints at all. It makes it so easy to shoot portraits. And to be honest, it's as good as you ever need, unless you're going to start shooting, in terms of tracking autofocus, unless you're going to start shooting birds in flight, which I haven't done with this camera, then it's as good as you need in everyday use. Really, really good quality autofocus in every way, really. No complaints whatsoever. One issue I do have with sort of the autofocus handling side of things is that the color of the AF point selection within the viewfinder or on the LCD screen is like a very sort of light colored gray. And I did notice that when I was out shooting in bright sunlight, it actually made it really difficult to see the AF point sometimes. And I haven't found a way to be able to change that color. So you can just half depress the shutter button and it will then focus on wherever the AF point is, and that will then highlight the AF selection point in green. So you can find it that way. But if you're just looking in the viewfinder and you're using the new AF joystick, which I'll talk about in a second, to try and find where the focus point is, I literally sometimes couldn't find the focus point without pressing the shutter button. So it would be much better if it was a very dark, you know, if it was black basically, or some different color that stood out. Because if your scene is bright and then you've just got a very pale gray AF point, it's difficult to find. But that's the only complaint really. In the UK, I know I wouldn't have that problem because it's not that bright most of the time. So it might be particular to my circumstances shooting here in the Philippines, but it's something to note. As I said just now, we do have an AF joystick now, which is really nice to use, very quick, feels good, gives you good tactile feedback, and it's probably the quickest way of moving your AF points around and selecting where you want. And I like the fact that it's very similar to the Panasonic setup. You press it in the direction you want to go. If you want to recenter it, you just click it in the middle and it's back in the center. That's great. In terms of customizability, you can customize everything that you possibly want now. You can set up one thing for videographers. You can set up one click to change between APS-C and full frame mode, so you can quickly go from one focal length to another, in essence, in video, which you couldn't do on previous generation bodies. So again, Sony have listened to the feedback and they've implemented that. That really, in terms of autofocus, is it. I'm not, in this review, I'm not going through and giving you loads and loads of examples. I'm just going to tell you my experience with the camera. It's 99% positive. I think it's an amazing camera. The image quality is superb. 24 megapixel full frame sensor, as I'm sure you know already if you're looking at this. And to me, that is the sweet spot, really. 42 megapixels that I have on my A7 III. For general use photography, it's too much. The files take too long to load onto your computer. Yes, it's great having all that detail, but actually it doesn't really make much difference. You know, I showed on the A7R II versus A7 III video previously, if you zoom into 100%, yes, you can see the difference. But in real world situations where you're perhaps photographing portraits, even landscapes, unless you're going to print them huge, I would argue that the benefits of 42 megapixels in real world photography, where you're perhaps printing or you're just posting online or you're putting on a website or even selling to stock, 24 megapixels is enough. The dynamic range is superb. You can easily lift shadows, and there's not much noise in the shadows either. And I noticed that you can recover the highlights very easily as well, and it retains detail in the highlights. Unless you get your exposure completely wrong, then you can recover most situations. And also one thing that I like on these Sony sensors that is definitely better than on something like Micro Four Thirds is the tonal transitions. So the gradations between sort of the colors are very, very fine, very, very smooth. It gives it a very natural look to the images. And the other thing with the A7 III is the high ISO noise performance. ISO 6400 for me is brilliant, really, really usable. There's a tiny little bit of noise in there, but nothing that can't be removed with Lightroom or Photoshop very, very easily. You're not having to do much work on the files at all. ISO 12800 actually is usable as well on this camera. So I would say there's probably a 2.5 to 3 stops difference now between the A7 III and something like the Olympus EM1 Mark II that I also have in terms of high ISO noise performance. Now, I'm not a huge low light shooter, so you know, I really appreciate the technology, and I also appreciate the ability to be able to use ISO 6400 without even thinking about it. That's not a problem at all. So high ISO noise performance is very, very good. I don't see it being hugely different to something like the Nikon D750 that I've used before. It is better, but it's not like whole other world better. Also, people say that the high ISO noise performance on the A7 III is much better than the A7R II. What you have to take into account is the A7R II is 42 megapixels, and if you down res that file to the same size as the A7 III, they're actually quite comparable. The A7 III is still a bit better, but they're quite comparable. So that's pretty much my review. Overall, would I recommend the camera? If you're going full frame and Sony has the lenses that you want, and they do have most lenses now, then yeah, it's an incredible camera. One thing I particularly like with this model now over the A7R II is that it's quick in use. So taking the photos, turning it on, startup time, that's very quick. Taking the actual shot and then being able to see the image in playback is very, very quick. Flicking through the menus, making selections with the AF points, changing your settings, everything is very, very fast now. There's no delay, and that is different to the A7R II. The A7R II is a little bit hesitant. It's obviously got an older generation processor in it, and also it's larger files, so there's more information to process. The A7 III doesn't have those slight speed issues when you're using the camera. It is snappy, fast. It makes a great all-round camera. There's really nothing to complain about at all. If you team this up with a Zeiss 55mm 1.8, which is what I've done a lot of the time for just, you know, standard everyday photography, if I'm taking a camera out on a trip or something, then it makes a very, very light package too. In fact, it is smaller, and I'll have to check the actual weight, but to me it feels smaller and around about the same weight as a Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II with a 25mm 1.2 Pro lens on it. And the image quality you're getting is actually better. So it can be a very, very small and lightweight package, and it's got to be one of the best cameras that you can get right now. There's not a lot more to say. If you're thinking of buying this camera, then, you know, if there's anything that I haven't covered here, then just ask me in the comments below, and I'll be happy to reply. But really, there's nothing I would say about this camera that should put you off. The only issue being now that on the 3rd generation of Sony bodies, Sony is not supporting the Play Memories app. So if you like to do time-lapse photography, and also if you're going to video yourself and want to use the app, which is what I'm doing now on the GH5, you can't do that anymore, which is a shame. For general photography, that's not going to be an issue, but if you are into time-lapse, for instance, then you will have to use an external intervalometer, which means you do have to carry some extra bits and bobs with you. It's not a huge deal. It wouldn't be a deal breaker for me, to be honest. I don't use the apps a huge amount, but they are convenient and they are like good if you want to quickly transfer images to your phone, and you want to take control of the camera with your phone. And as I say, time-lapse, things like this. But apart from that, in terms of an actual camera to use, if you're thinking of buying it, honestly, I can't think of a reason to say no, don't buy it. There's nothing that stands out where you say, oh, yeah, I don't like this about it, I don't like that about it. So that's the review. I know it's very brief and very quick, but I'm in the Philippines. I'm heading back to the UK in a couple of days' time. I'm going up to Scotland to do some landscape photography and videography and some wildlife stuff. And I won't be taking the A7 III with me there because unfortunately Sony just doesn't have the lenses for wildlife photography at the moment. It has the 100 to 400, which is £2,000. Which I don't mind paying for, but it doesn't have the reach. I know 400mm on full frame, even with an extender on it, doesn't have the reach for me, so I will be shooting Panasonic cameras up there. And that's it. If you appreciate the review, if you find it useful, then great. Give me a like. Not a like, what are we on here? Give me a thumbs up. We're on YouTube, aren't we? Give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Coming up next will be GH5 and G9 sort of combined review, because I've got the Panasonic G9 waiting for me back in the UK, along with some Leica or Panasonic Leica lenses. So I'll be using those up in Scotland, hopefully get some nice landscape shots and some wildlife shots too. Okay, that's it. Hope you found it useful, as I say, and until next time, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.